We cannot imagine Ukraine without Crimea. And while Crimea is under the Russian occupation, it means only one thing: war is not over yet.
To be clear, in victory, in peace, is there any scenario where Crimea is not part of Ukraine?
It will not be victory then.
So there's now an arrest warrant for Prigozhin for high treason in Russia. I guess Putin's not a man of his word after all. He's in quite the pickle, as we will soon get to. And on top of that, Putin has started disassembling Prigozhin's empire in Russia. His food business is done, and his media empire also shut down this week. Continuing the news regarding the coup, Russia's Air Force Chief Sergei Surovikin is still missing more than a week after the Wagner assault. Zelensky recently did an interview with CNN where he called Putin weak and claimed his grip on power in Russia is weakening. Lastly, Russia's Secretary of Security Council has put out a rather alarming statement. He threatened a nuclear apocalypse, and also suggests Finland is not a real country and was created by Lenin by mistake. Things seem to be getting crazier in Russia by the minute. Let's get into all that in today's video. Daily reminder to hit that like button so the video isn't killed by the algorithm. Alright, let's start with some good news. Today's good news is a bit of a unique one. The International Center for the Prosecution of the Crime of Aggression, say that 10 times fast, will open an investigation into Putin's invasion of Ukraine, the first step towards a tribunal for the criminal Kremlin's leadership. The ICPA will help build aggression cases by securing crucial evidence, a very important step towards restoring justice. This process makes it possible to have future trials of Russian war criminals. Moving on, there's a report of the true figure of how much of the Russian government has paid Prigozhin's companies. As many of you probably remember, Putin recently announced to the world that, since the Ukraine war started, the Russian government has paid around $1 billion to the Wagner and Concord groups, both companies owned by Prigozhin. Wagner is a private military company, as you all already know, and Concord is the food company that provides food to the military and the government. Russian Channel 1 reports that Wagner has received a total of almost $10 billion from the Russian government, while Concord has received nearly another $10 billion. Until Prigozhin's mutiny last month, his Concord group was the Russian military's biggest food supplier. The Russian government has paid 845 billion rubles, about $9.6 billion, under a contract with the Russian MOD's procurement arm. As of July 1st, the Russian Ministry of Defense decided to terminate the contract with Concord Company. As a Russian media company reported, their employees are going to be fired without severance pay, and that includes several thousand employees: cooks, storekeepers, canteen managers, and accountants. It's unclear what impact Concord's demise will have on military food logistics in occupied Ukraine. The situation is already reportedly very bad, with frontline troops complaining they lack food and water. It's unlikely that Concord services can be replaced immediately. Likewise, Prigozhin's Patriot Media Group has shut down virtually overnight. A now former employee of one of the publications says the editor-in-chief announced their dismissal and promised they would get their remaining salaries and severance pay. And last but definitely not least, Wagner also seems to be having problems. Telegram channels related to Wagner PMC publish announcements that recruitment centers for mercenaries won't be working for a month due to temporary non-participation of Wagner PMC in the special military operation, and moving to Belarus Republic. I still don't know what they mean by temporary. Yesterday, Prigozhin did put out a statement that alludes to something similar. He said he's confident people will soon see Wagner's future victories at the front. According to the source of the Russian VCHK OGPU Telegram channel, Prigozhin is already trying to solve the recruitment issue in Belarusian prisons and colonies, and he seems to have already received approval from Lukashenko. All that remains is to find a reason for recruitment. The mercenaries were told that about 4/5 of the group is going to Belarus. Those who remain in the Russian Federation, for the most part, will remain near Luhansk. According to the interlocutor, all the key figures are now located in Belarus, including the head of the PMC, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Maybe he's planning to help Russia and Ukraine again to win back Putin's love and those billion-dollar contracts? I don't really know what his plan is, so I'm just guessing here. But Putin doesn't seem like he's in any mood to make up with Prigozhin. There are reports of arrest warrants being issued for Prigozhin for high treason. The reports mention that this warrant just appeared in the FSB system. There doesn't seem to be any news that the FSB is planning on carrying out this warrant, at least not yet. If there's any news on that front, I'll keep you guys updated. Last topic relating to the coup is about Sergei Surovikin. If you guys have been following the coup closely, you might know Surovikin. He was one of the few Russian generals to put out a public statement calling on Prigozhin to turn back. All the while, Shoigu and Putin hid and ran. In the video, he urged Russian troops in Ukraine to maintain their positions and not join the uprising. General Surovikin is a respected military leader who helped shore up defenses across the battle lines after Ukraine's counteroffensive last year. He was replaced as the top commander in January, but retained influence in running war operations, and he remains popular among the troops. Since the coup, he has disappeared from the public's eye, and it's believed that he knew about Prigozhin's plan ahead of time. Recent reports suggest that he's being isolated with Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu's approval, after being denounced by those close to him. According to the source, the reports on him were written, allegedly voluntarily, by two people from very close quarters, including a personal assistant. In them, the military personnel claimed that Surovikin had a close relationship with Prigozhin before and during the campaign against Moscow, and supported the leader of the Wagner PMC in his efforts. They also gave details of the relationship between Surovikin and Prigozhin. Shoigu gave the go-ahead for these reports, and the FSB, the Military Prosecutor's Office, and other structures were involved in the assigned verification. There is no official investigation, but in fact, Surovikin is being interrogated about all the information that was stated by the informants. Surovikin is not officially detained, but he's being held in isolation for the time of the investigation, allegedly voluntarily. His relatives were promised that he'll be home soon. It's expected that this may happen on the 4th of July, when the general's wife Anna has her birthday. I'll keep you guys updated if he's released and if he gives out a public statement, so be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Alright, moving on. Zelensky has been pretty vocal against Putin ever since the coup attempt. Recently, he called him weak in a clip in a CNN interview. Listen for yourself.
Mr. President, you recently said that you have dealt, and I'll quote you the way it quoted, with different Putins. It's a completely different set of traits in different periods. Now, of course, he's faced a rebellion, an attempted coup from Evgeny Prigozhin. Have you seen any changes in how you think he's acting, in his behavior since the attempted coup?
Yes, we see the reaction after certain Wagner steps. We see Putin's reaction. It's weak. Firstly, we see he doesn't control everything. Wagner's moving deep into Russia and taking certain regions shows how easy it is to do. Putin doesn't control the situation in the regions. He doesn't control the security situation. All of us understand that his whole army is in Ukraine. Almost entire army is there. That's why it's so easy for the Wagner troops to march through Russia. Who could have stopped him? We understand that Putin doesn't control the regional policy, and he doesn't control all those people in the regions. So all that vertical of power he used to have just got crumbling down.
Do you believe he's fully in charge of the military right now? When it comes to your front line and this counteroffensive, do you believe Putin is fully in charge of the Russian military?
I don't think he fully controls all the processes. He gives orders to the commanders. It's understood. They are scared to lose their jobs, but he doesn't understand and doesn't control the middle layer of the Russian military, nor the lower rank officers and soldiers.
The full interview is expected to air on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check it out. Russians are not staying quiet either. Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's Secretary of Security Council, has a new article out in which he rages once again against the evil West. He stated that the world is in a much worse place than it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis because Russia's opponents have decided to defeat the largest nuclear power, Russia. They are, no doubt, complete idiots, but that's just the way it is. Regarding Prigozhin's mutiny, he says, "The authorities in Russia have convincingly proved their strength and stability, and Russian people have demonstrated their readiness to rally around President Vladimir Putin to defend the homeland." In his view, the war in Ukraine is an all-out confrontation between the conditional collective West and the rest of the world that will last decades. He sees two solutions to the problem: nuclear apocalypse. Nuclear weapons have already been used by whom and where, so there is no taboo, or the search for the hardest compromise, which will have to be enshrined in a new document like the Helsinki Act. Only Helsinki itself, alas, is no good for obvious reasons. Finland is now a hostile country to us, once created by Lenin's thoughtlessness and joined NATO today. I guess this statement alone justifies why Finland was in such a hurry to join NATO after Russia invaded Ukraine. Lastly, yesterday I explained the importance of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station and the dangers it poses to the world if Russia decides to blow it up. Today, it seems like Russian Telegram channels are spreading rumors of a detonation of the plant ahead of the NATO summit in Vilnius on July 11th and 12th. This is their way of spinning Zelensky's warnings that Russia plans to detonate the plant. I received some comments yesterday saying, why would Russia destroy the plant? Because the radiation would hurt Russia too. Well, if Putin feels like he's losing support in Russia and losing support for his war, he can blow up the nuclear plant and try to blame it on Ukraine. If he's able to convince the Russians that Ukraine blew up the plant that's causing so much harm to the world, then he can gain enough local support to continue his war to replace Ukrainian leadership. Doing something like this would turn the world against Putin. That would most likely include his friends in China and India. But if Putin gets desperate enough, you can't rule it out. Finally, I do want to share some updates from France. In my recent video, I covered how tragic riots have erupted in France after the death of a 17-year-old boy during a traffic stop. Riots are still ongoing, but the intensity of the riots have calmed down after 5 days. Sunday night saw violence subside and fewer arrests were made. However, President Emmanuel Macron has asked the Interior Ministry to keep a massive police presence on the streets. Today, mayors called for rallies to be held outside town halls to protest the violence and the looting. The 6 days of riots have reportedly caused millions of euros worth of damage to public transit in the Paris region. About 45,000 officers have been deployed across the country for the past 3 nights, and they will be out on the streets again on Monday. Meanwhile, French regional authorities are starting to announce financial support measures for looted businesses and hospitality venues. One of the biggest issues I noticed that is going a little underreported is the misinformation around these riots. Of course, these riots have been tragic, but there are many Twitter accounts which are sharing old videos from completely unrelated events in an attempt to over-exaggerate the damage caused by the riots. So, don't believe all the videos you're seeing online. Alright, that's it for today. Happy early 4th of July, everybody. If you want to keep up with the geopolitical news, be sure to sign up for my newsletter down below.